Hey, I'm Malicki and welcome to A Life That Travels. Today at La Trobe University's Bundoora campus in Melbourne, I'm actually pretty stoked to be here and to have students around. When I actually filmed my university review of this university last year, sometime I want to say, it was sort of late in the afternoon. This place was absolutely empty, so it's sort of cool to be here when you've actually got lots of students around. Today's video is about university rankings because if you are thinking of going to study at uni, chances are at some point you're going to be Googling around and you're going to come across a whole bunch of information about rankings, star ratings, and all sorts of other things. And I wanted to explain a little bit of what they were all about. So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the different types of rankings that are out there. And basically, like, should you even care about whether or not a ranking, applies to you or to your particular area of study? So let's dive in. By the end of this video, you should have a much better idea about which rankings you might want to pay attention to and how to use them. So let's go. Firstly, what is a university ranking? Well, firstly, there are tons of them these days. It's a relatively new invention, if you like. The three oldest rankings in the world are like the higher education groups, the Times Higher Education Group ranking, THE, which you'll see quite regularly. One called the Academic Rankings of World's Universities, the ARWU, also colloquially known as the Shanghai Jiao Tong ranking because it is produced by Jiao Tong University in China. And then finally, like the QS, the Quacquarelli-Symonds world ranking is also one of the oldest and kind of like most reputable, if you like. So those are three of the rankings that you're most likely to see if you're looking at like a global style ranking or even like an Australian national ranking of institutions. On top of that though, there are literally like scores of other different rankings. Now, Wall Street Journal has done one. Also, Newsweek, I think, has done one in the past where it ranks the top 100 universities in the world. There's also the Centre for World University Rankings, which runs out of the UAE in the Middle East. So there's literally a ton of them. What does all this mean? Well, basically what they're trying to do is to compare institution with institution and put them into some sort of linear fashion. Now, the way they do that varies from ranking to ranking, and this is where you need to pay attention to the detail, right? Some of these rankings take into consideration research output. How much research is a university doing, and like what is the value of that research? So the way they might look at that is if an academic produces a particular research paper, how many times has that been cited by other academics around the world? Therefore, how valuable is the research that's being created by a particular institution? And they give a weighting to that in the overall ranking. Others of them look at student satisfaction. So what do students say about their experience there? Many of these rankings will also do things like send out surveys to both employers, to academics all around the world, to different companies, trying to gauge like what's the opinion of people who interact with these institutions. So that's very subjective. And what they do, each ranking has its own like methodology where they take all these different considerations and they lump it all together, they give a university a score and then they rank them. Now, one of the accepted wisdoms inside universities in higher education in general is that it's a pretty coarse measure, like it's quite blunt. It's quite a blunt way to like look across an entire institution and try to decide like how valuable an experience of that institution is just based on its kind of like global overall ranking. Because inside every institution, you're going to have areas of real expertise, so real strengths inside a particular discipline area, and you might have other areas that aren't so strong. So if you just look at like the headline ranking, like I don't know, La Trobe I think is ranked in the top 1.5% of unis worldwide. Like that's the top couple of hundred, 300, 400 universities worldwide. What does that mean for you? Like, should you actually care that La Trobe is ranked in the top, hundreds of unis worldwide? Well, probably not, quite frankly, unless like that prestige factor is important to you. So of course, like if you're determined to like go to Harvard or MIT or Oxford or like super prestigious institution, then yeah, looking at Australian universities, Uni of Melbourne, USyd, ANU, like those are going to be your choices without a doubt. But for most people, like the vast majority of people, what's much more important is like what's under the surface of that global ranking. How does your particular discipline rate for the subject that you want to study, compared to other unis that are strong in that area. And in that regard, what you'll actually find is that some of these big rankings do have like subject by subject ranking scales. That's much more valuable to you. So if you want to go and study history, or you want to go and study sciences, you're better to look at the detailed subject by subject ratings that these big rankings put out. The way to do that, hit up their websites, or simply just go to Google and just bang in like World University Ranking for chemistry, for engineering, and you'll actually get those lists of institutions. So that's a lot more useful for most people to find out how to compare two different institutions. Now, one thing I tell everybody is that if you're choosing a university, the way it ranks, like how it ranks, is only part of the story. Every university has got more that goes on outside the classroom. Like, yes, a good classroom experience is certainly very valuable to you to get a job, but it's more what else is on your resume. So you've got to look at things like what sort of opportunities are available to study outside the classroom. So can you go and study overseas? Can you do internships and work integrated learning? Are there leadership opportunities? Is there a good social life on campus? Are there lots of clubs and societies for you to get involved in? Those things you really need to think about, because your academic experience is only one part of your experience of being at university. So you need to look up those sorts of things as well, because if you're comparing two different universities, yes, you can judge it just based on the university ranking. That is only going to tell you about part of the experience. It's not going to tell you the whole story. And honestly, you're going to spend years in this place. You want it to actually be a good experience based on what you're interested in, not just based on like what some people sitting in an office on the other side of the world arbitrarily rank this institution as. Boom. Best kind of information from an Australian perspective is the Australian Government's Quality Indicators of Learning and Teaching website, the QUILT website, quilt.edu.au. QUILT is actually based on Australian government surveys and data from students who've graduated at institutions just like La Trobe. So students who've studied here in various discipline areas get to give their feedback. They get to say, like, were they happy with the teaching experience here? Are they happy with like the job employability prospects? Are they happy with how things were overall, as well as in their individual classes? That data is collated and made public for you, so you can actually access it, dive into absolute detail of, like engineers at one institution versus another. What do the students who study here actually say? And the website, great website actually, allows you to compare institution against institution. That's a fantastic result, a resource, and one that you should absolutely take advantage of. So the QUILT website, check that out, and I'll make sure that I drop that in the show notes down below. Overall, academic rankings, like, should you pay attention to it? Well, yeah, it should be part of your decision-making process, but it shouldn't be everything, because your academic experience at uni is only one part of your experience here. Just remember that. Like, yes, a degree from a good university anywhere in the world is probably going to get you a job interview. What's going to get you the job, and most importantly, what's going to get you the job that you really like, is all that other stuff that happens outside the classroom, things that you get involved in, the things that you engage with. And there's a lot of difference between universities. So, yeah, unfortunately, there's no simple way just to be like, this is the university for me. You do have to do a bit of research and dive into the detail. And of course, A Life That Travels, we've got independent, unbiased reviews of basically every single university in the country. I reckon I must be one of the very few people in Australia that has literally been to almost every institution in the country. I think there's one or two that I haven't been to. So I've seen them all. Been around a long time, and you can check out all of those university reviews right here on A Life That Travels. That's it. I hope it helps you. If there's anything else that you would like to know, please drop it in the comments below, and I promise you that I will reply to you. Any questions or anything like that, definitely drop them there. And look, please hit the subscribe button and like on this video. That really helps me out just to keep creating content. It doesn't cost you anything. All it does is just help me to create more content for you going forward. It also gives me a nice warm fuzzy feeling that these 10 minutes have been useful for somebody. So take it easy, guys. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time on A Life That Travels. Thanks for joining me.